Welcome to Razzball Radio Fantasy Sports Network. Nick Capozzi and Sky, who apparently doesn't have a last name. I don't know if you picked up on that yet. And we are, I don't know if you can tell where we are. I kind of forget. Are we in Boston?
We're definitely not in Kansas anymore.
Ah, that's right. Oh, we're outside of Arrowhead, of course, home of the Chiefs. Right over there is Kauffman Stadium, home of the Kansas City Baseball Royals. So what we're going to do today is we're going to head in. We got a big draft here in Kansas City tonight at The Well on Broadway Avenue in downtown KC. But first, what we're going to do is, later on in the show, we're going to talk we got Mark Collins from former Kansas City Chief, who's going to do the Chiefs report with us. We're very excited about that. But right now, we're going to talk about some players who might be a little bit under-owned and might be worth considering, or you should be considering as a possible pickup, maybe for week one, maybe for longer in the season. Because now that you're looking at your roster, and maybe you picked up Josh Gordon, or you picked up someone that has training camps have evolved, might not be a good call anymore. So let's start with Isaiah Crowell. You brought this one up. He was the undrafted running back of the Cleveland Browns. Why should we be picking up Isaiah Crowell right now?
Well, the big thing is that team is going to be very, very run dependent.
Come on, they're going to run a lot. You think so?
Whether they want to or not, they kind of have no choice. With Gordon suspended, as good as Cameron is, he can't be a one-man wrecking crew out there on the receiving side. Hawkins isn't going to get it done. Neither is Austin. So you're really going to look at a team that's going to try to grind the clock down, that's going to try to get it to their backs as much as possible. And with that in mind, you've got a running back in Ben Tate, who is the lead back, and it's not a question of talent with him. He's had a lot of injuries over the course of his career, and he's been the backup for somebody who's been injury-prone. So you've got a guy who hasn't really shown he can play a full 16 games. And I know that Terrence West is his backup, but in the end, I could easily see three guys getting into a rotation there if things fall that way. Or you could get one of those two, West or Ben Tate, hurt, and he's going to end up being a prize pickup for you.
So there you go. So just something to consider. I mean, I still think Terrence West, even though he didn't have a very good preseason, is a very interesting running back. I think he'll get the opportunity, but if something does happen to Tate. But if Tate stays healthy at the same time, he's a guy I like. I didn't get him in very many leagues. I think I maybe have him in one league this year because the chances of him staying healthy aren't very good. But if he could, for some reason, he has the upside to be a top 10 back for the Cleveland Browns. No question about that. Okay. Hey, do you think in Kansas City when they have their tailgating here before a Chiefs game that they make good barbecue?
I would almost put money on it, and I don't like.
What do you mean almost put money? What do you mean? That's easy money. Of course they barbecue out here, man. I see charcoal-only bins all over the place, and we're not even ready for kickoff yet.
I'm not a gambler. What can I say? I'm giving a 99.9% chance here, though.
All right, okay. You wouldn't gamble on that. Okay. You know what? Your last name is Safe. Your new name is Sky Safe. All right, next guy on the list is Roy Halou. He is now going to be officially a third down back. He's battled injuries, it seems, since he came into the league, but 2 years ago he ended the season really strong. Explain to me why he is worth a pickup. By the way, all these players are owned in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there.
You want me to go back to Roy Halou? Did I do the whole thing again? Roy Halou.
Roy Halou. In good graces there. Roy Halou here is, Halou there. We've got Alfred Morris, who, I don't think he is necessarily a bad receiving back, but he doesn't look like he's going to be given the opportunity, and Roy Halou is. And in that offense, I'm pretty down on the Redskins in general, at least on the receiving side. But I'm talking about the field stretchers like Deshaun Jackson. I definitely see Roy Halou as one of those guys that could break through and have maybe a Darren Sproles type year because RG3 is going to be dumping it off a lot, and they're going to be facing a lot of thirds downs. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up defensively, so they're going to have to keep throwing to keep in the game. I see Halou getting really good opportunities in the passing game. 60 to 70 yard 60 to 70 reception year wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, you know what? Especially if he's playing a PPR league, he's a sneaky pickup. He could have a lot of value. You made a lot of good points there. It's stuff we've been saying, but sometimes we forget about the Roy Halous. Okay, one guy who's got a lot of buzz during the preseason, but you know what? He's available in more than 50% of leagues, especially if you're in a PPR. You want to grab Dexter McCluster. Now, I'm not buying the whole, Ken Wisenhunt's going to turn him into Danny Woodhead argument, but he does have a matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those you got to pay attention week one. You could call it a revenge game, or you can call it whatever you want, but the reality is the Kansas City Chiefs let him go, and then they went and picked up basically.
You big revenge guy?
I'm all about revenge, Nick. You'll find out later. We've got DeAnthony Thomas, who got brought in. We're talking in terms of physical size. They are the exact same player. Maybe Dat is a little bit more shifty and whatnot, but if you can't use Dexter, then you can't use Dat. So Dexter's going to come in here this weekend. He's going to show them what they're missing, and Ken Wiesenhut's going to give them every opportunity to do that. And I think that carries through the rest of the season as definitely a dump-off guy for Locker to go to.
Yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where that happens. One more guy we're going to talk about before we go to break, Geno Smith. People forget he actually ended the season really strong last year. There was talk 2 years ago this guy could be the top pick of the draft. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility, but same kind of thing with Teddy Bridgewater. The more they examined him, the more they took him apart. Something's got to happen with that offense. There's some sneaky weapons there. Chris Johnson's there. Whenever Ivory's healthy, Decker is there. Why are we picking up Geno Smith?
For a lot of what you just said right there.
Did I steal your thunder? I'm sorry.
No, but I'll pile on to that there. I feel like he got off to a little bit of a shaky start, and it's not necessarily his fault. When you stick a young quarterback out there with 0 targets, I mean, they were supposed to have Stephen Hill step forward, and obviously he did not. He's now released by the team. That just goes to show you that if that's supposed to be your big target in the red zone and throughout the season, if you lose that at the beginning and your main target's Jeremy Curley, you're going to struggle. It's going to become a dink and dunk game. You're not going to be able to do much. And actually, he kind of impressed me early on in the season with his pocket presence. He was actually pretty shifty in there. He stayed in there a little bit too long. That's where you saw a lot of those sacks. But he was also, that shows me that he's bold. He's willing to stay in there and look for the open guy. And now he's going to get the opportunity to actually throw it to somebody who could get open.
That's some bold analysis. We got to go eat some bold barbecue. By the way, the only thing I like dinking and dunking is my donuts. Okay, we are in KC. We got a lot more show coming up for you. We got some more guys who you're going to find on your waiver wire that are going to be valuable this week. Again, we got Mark Collins here in Kansas City. This is Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network, back right after this from KC.
I was never one for traditional dating, which is why I like to meet guys on arrangementfinders.com. Arrangement Finders puts a twist on dating that works so well, they guarantee you'll find a girl. That's right, guarantee. Sounds too good to be true? Check out these girls on arrangementfinders.com who are looking to date. She's hot. She's hot. Okay, her, not so much. Anyway, it's free to join. Go to Arrangement Finders and meet girls like me who know what you really want.
Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Nick Capozzi here with former NFL superstar defensive back Mark Collins. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Are you kidding, man? Come on. How often do I get to get a guy on the show who's got Super Bowl rings?
I don't know, but it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs because we are here in Kansas City at the Well on Broadway in Waldo. Very cool bar, great neighborhood, great place to do your fantasy football draft. Let's start right at the top, the quarterback situation. They just signed Alex Smith to an extension. This guy, I think, is the ultimate game manager. Yeah. He's not very relevant for fantasy. Maybe in 2 quarterback leagues you're going to use him. But as a pro quarterback, how do you assess him?
I think he's very good. He's one of those guys who are on the board of being great. Just unfortunate what happened in San Francisco, but San Francisco's lost to the Chiefs game, and he's doing some great things in Kansas City.
Okay, and look, that's fair. Again, he's not a guy that we're going to talk about for fantasy purposes, but you know what? He's a game manager. The Chiefs had a really easy schedule last year, took advantage of it. It's a lot harder this year. So let's talk about the running back, starting with Jamal Charles. Yeah. Obviously, he had a phenomenal season last year, but they've lost 3 starters off that offensive line. What kind of impact? Because right now, Jamal Charles is going as the 2nd or 3rd running back off the board. What kind of impact can he have this year, Mark?
I think he'll be dominating. He'll be just as good last year. I mean, he's a fantastic player, catches the ball out of the backfield, led the team in rushing and receiving, so that tells you a lot. And I think the Chiefs will rely on him to do the same thing this year.
But even with the offensive line, are you not worried about that line? I mean, I knew you were a defensive back.
No, you don't worry about offensive line because one thing that they can do, they create holes for him, and he can make the cracks himself, and he has the speed to do it. So they're not really worried about the line that much when he's in the game. When he's out of the game, then it becomes a problem.
And that's one thing, of course, when you're dealing with the coaching staff like you have here. They're line builders, so there is some optimism. I have picked up Charles in a couple leagues, but he's a great guy to handcuff with Niall Davis. And of the 3, 4, 5 key running backs, Niall Davis might be the best handcuff out there. Talk to me about him.
You might be right. I think Niall's a great runner, great slasher-type runner, but he may not get as much play time because of DeAnthony Thomas. Watching the preseason games this year, DeAnthony Thomas is running second-team running back. So and he's doing pretty dang well. So keep an eye out for him.
What's his upside? I mean, what is his ceiling as a professional running back?
Speed and durability. Don't let the small size fool you. He's pretty solidly built, and he can run fast. So, and also he's a returner also too. So
yeah, absolutely. So you know what? Interesting guy to keep an eye in dynasty leagues, obviously in keeper leagues. Okay, I don't even want to talk about the wide receivers here because I hate talking about Dwayne Bowe. Having Dwayne Bowe on my team is awful. It makes me sad. But you know what? He's kind of what they have here, a wide receiver.
Well, that's it. He's the guy. He's the guy that they have, and he's going to put together a solid season. He is the go-to guy. But here's the best thing about what's happening in Kansas City. They also have 2 great tight ends right now, which could take some throws away from Dwayne Bowe.
And let's transition right into that because that might be, after Jamal Charles, the most interesting player on this team for fantasy purposes is Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He's 6'6", 250, 260. This is technically his second year. He was hurt his first year, but here's a guy who can run. Had a fantastic preseason, 11 catches, 193 yards. I mean, a solid guy. He's a guy. If the Chiefs wanted to, could do a 2 tight end set, and he's a legitimate threat down the middle to keep the safety in the middle of the field.
Absolutely. Now, what about the defense? Because the defense was good last year. A lot of people are stumping on them this year. But, again, I think that schedule is a lot tougher. The Chargers showed a lot of improvement last year. Denver's going to have a slight regression, but they're still in the division. You know what? It's easy to pick on the Raiders. But you know what? They might actually be able to run the ball. Maurice Jones-Drew was he's been a top 10 running back.
Yeah, Maurice Jones-Drew, he's solid. A little bit older now. I don't know how much gas left in the tank. We'll see what happens there. But the Chiefs' defense, there's a situation, especially in the secondary. That's where, watching the preseason games, there was nothing there. Eric Berry missed a lot of the preseason due to injury. They kept him out. The corners, I have no idea what's going on there at all.
Okay. My sugar daddy of the day brought to you by ArrangementFinders.com. The Kansas City Chief that I think is going to grossly outperform his ADP is Travis Kelce. He is not being drafted or hasn't been drafted because now we're approaching the end of draft season. He is a guy you definitely want to stash on your roster, especially if you waited on tight end. Now, listen, because I got you here, Mark, we're going to cheat a little bit, just talk a little bit of real football because you starred for the Giants. You also played for the Chiefs. You played for the Packers. You played for the Seahawks. What was your favorite team to play on? Don't worry. No one's going to see this on television, especially because we're on Cablevision in New York.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you, the New York Giants and the New York City people were fantastic. Winning 2 Super Bowls there was great. Kansas City is another fantastic football city, but my overall favorite is New York.
I mean, what is it like being a champion in New York City?
Let me tell you something. When you win in New York, they love you. When you lose, they hate you. But I've been very blessed to work for a great organization, the Mara family and the Tisch family now. Fantastic people. I still bleed giant blue, and that will never change.
All right, beautiful. What year, what teams were you on that won the Super Bowls?
1986 and 1990. We beat the Denver Broncos in 1986 and the Buffalo Bills in 1990, and I was the defensive MVP of that second Super Bowl. So I had to throw that in there a little bit because people tend to forget about that. Listen, Otis Anderson got the car. I got a White Castle sandwich, and that was it.
What do you do these days?
I started my own business, a college recruiting company called 25 Sports, and what we do is give student athletes the opportunity to get recruited by colleges.
So I grew up in Canada, so I have 4 years eligibility left. I'm 38 years old. Can you do anything with me? Is there like Division 7?
No, you could go to Queens College in Canada, so that's where you got to go, Queens College.
Go to Golden Gales, you know that.
I know this. It's my job. That's what I do.
But no, really, I got for you because you know what, we played more rugby. I mean, football's bigger now, but I played a lot of rugby. I played number 8 growing up. I wanted to play football, but it just wasn't as big. I mean, now it's changed a lot. So, yeah, man. Listen, I wasn't good enough athlete anyway. So
you can play. I know you can play. Come on, Nick, you can play.
Right. So here's what we're going to do now. We are going to come back after this. We're going to talk with Sky. We got a couple of more guys that you should be picking up this week. Guys, you definitely want to consider less than 50% ownership. We are in Kansas City. We are at the well. And just a reminder, guys, if you're still trying to lock up your league fees, do it for free with SportsVault.net. They will send out the emails. They'll send the collection agents. They'll send Mark knocking on the guys' doors who haven't paid, all right? Also, we're playing a lot of daily fantasy this year. Of course, every Sunday you can play with us. DraftKings.com. Enter promo code Razzball when signing up to get a first-time deposit match and an entry into one of those Sunday kickoffs with us. Don't forget, they got $5 million on the line. Yeah, man, kickoff week with DraftKings.
That's a lot of money.
I know.
Oh,
man, imagine if you were playing in today's NFL.
Really? At least $18 million a year. At least. But no. I had to be born in 1964. But it's okay. I love my life.
All right. Nick Capozzi, Mark Collins, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Back right after this.
I was never one for traditional dating, which is why I like to meet guys on arrangementfinders.com. Arrangement Finders puts a twist on dating that works so well, they guarantee you'll find a girl. That's right, guarantee. Sounds too good to be true? Check out these girls on arrangementfinders.com who are looking to date. She's hot. She's hot. Okay, her, not so much. Anyway, it's free to join. Go to Arrangement Finders and meet girls like me who know what you really want.
Welcome back, Razzball Radio Fantasy Sports Network. Nick and Sky. Sky, what was the new last name I gave you? Do you remember? I don't even remember it because we had, well, do you remember? No, we're like, no, okay, back to work. Okay. We were at the well here in Kansas City. We are still talking fantasy football. We were so lucky to have Mark Collins, Super Bowl champion, on with us. But right now, you're stuck with us. But that's okay. We're going to give you some good information. These are guys that are owned in less than 50% of leagues that are definitely worth considering. Now, earlier in today's show, we already talked about Geno Smith. Let's talk now about Jake Locker, who is an easy guy to have given up on. He's been fantasy relevant when he's able to move his legs, but they've improved the line. Tyler Llewellyn, the first-round pick, has been great there. They got Chance Womack for another year. I think that there's actually an opportunity for Jake Locker to maybe be relevant in something other than a 2 QB league, probably just super flex. But tell me why you want to pick him up.
No, I think you nailed it. Put the nail on the head right there. Definitely a guy that I'm looking at as what you want to call the 1.5 QB leagues with the flex right now. He's got everything going for him. Like Nick said, the offensive line is vastly improved, and you also have to realize he's got some great targets to be thrown to with Kendall Wright and Justin Hunter there. He's got a cannon of an arm. There's also been some issues. They've talked about his accuracy issues. But when you start getting him some protection, you start getting him not shaky and ready to run out there, you get him set. He definitely has a chance to go off this year in passing and rushing.
Okay, another guy that we are talking about today is a guy who was just signed by the Buffalo Bills, Kyle Orton. Now you're thinking Kyle Orton, but you know what? Kyle Orton's had some moments. A, B, there's some pretty good skill on Buffalo. I know it doesn't necessarily seem that way, but E.J. Manuel, we've talked about this. I'm off the E.J. Manuel bus. But Kyle Orton could be interesting as a second QB.
Yeah, he's definitely, in my deeper leagues where we start 2 QBs, I put the little star next to him on all my fantasy waiver wire wishes there. Is that
how you do your Christmas list? You're like, here's what I want for my fantasy Christmas.
Exactly. I do that. I mark it all up. I have a notebook, actually. But in any case, E.J. Manuel.
Why am I not surprised?
E.J. Manuel is he's become the one check and done guy. He's not utilizing the tools that they have there in Buffalo, and they've got great skill players there, and it seems like a vast wasteland for fantasy because of him, not because of the players that they have. You put Kyle Orton in there, I'm not saying he's going to go off and become some kind of top 5 QB, but with the talent that's there, we saw what he did with Dallas last year, and he even had a little rust on him at that time. He performed very, very well down the stretch. You put him in that team, you get him situated. I could easily see him starting by middle of October and kind of taking your fantasy teams that were maybe floundering because you had a bad quarterback.
I could see him starting Sunday. Maybe they can bring J.P. Lossman back while they're at it.
Except for Lossman, I would love to see that on Sunday, but it's just not going to happen. They're not going to give up that early. They should.
And they don't have a first-round pick anymore next year after the Sammy Watkins deal.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying. They should be sitting him to make him kind of sit back and watch what a real pro quarterback can do and learn from behind somebody else. But sadly, we're stuck with him for a few more weeks.
Okay, fair enough. Here's another guy we are looking at right now, Sean Green. I'm surprised, especially because Bishop Sankey has not had a stellar preseason. We already talked about the offensive line for the Titans. This guy's 30% owned in Yahoo. That you should be picking him up.
You know, the problem is especially with fantasy football, for whatever reason, you got to think of guys like Noshawn Moreno who get written off because they're boring. You've seen them play. They're not as smooth as other running backs. They're just a guy. The great thing is, though, is if you're just a guy and you're better than the guy behind you, you're the one that's going to get the bulk of the carries. And I can definitely see that with Sean Green this year. I think he's going to be at least the 2-down back. He's probably not going to be in there for the passing sets, but that's fine. You know, you get him down there at the goal line, he scores you a few touchdowns. He could easily be an RB2 this year just based on volume alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Why is Jason Morrow on this list? He has not had a good camp. And my man, Mike Cardano of Roto Experts and the Fantasy Sports Network was stumping him as a guy who's better than Kyle Rudolph, potentially. Wow. Go ahead. You can pick on Mike. I still love you, Mike.
Mike, I don't know you, but I love you now because you're with me with my boy Jason Morrow here. The thing is as we talked about Geno Smith earlier, it's not just going to be Decker that's going to be fantasy relevant there. He's going to need to find some other guys. I think Jeremy Curley will probably be that under route PPR guy if things get gelling. But Jason Morrow is going to be a great red zone target for him throughout the season. It's hard. It's always hard to gauge those kind of guys. How much yards are they going to get outside of the red zone? But if Geno Smith gets it going, you could be looking at an 8 to 10 touchdown tight end right there. And that's pretty hard to find on any waiver wire any day.
Yeah, absolutely. You got Malcolm Floyd on this list. Again, these are guys that are owned in less than 50% of leagues. He hasn't been healthy for a long time. They cut Vincent Brown. Antonio Gates is old, and I mean like old. What's the deal, Malcolm Floyd?
Malcolm Floyd is a guy that Phillip Rivers trusts. He was a guy that was stretching the field, before he got hurt. And Vincent Brown was given a year to prove whether or not he was worthy to stay on the roster. Obviously, he's not, and I think a part of that is because Malcolm Floyd's coming back healthy and ready to contribute again. He's always one of those under-the-radar but yet useful wide receivers every single year. He's not going to get you a huge amount of receptions, but he could be a 1,000-yard receiver, maybe 60 to 65 catches, and maybe chuck in 6 to 8 touchdowns.
Why do you think Garrett Graham should be owned, tight end from Houston?
Volume, baby. And Fitzpatrick can't throw it past 10 yards. So that really helps. Garrett Graham, in his moments when Owen Daniels went down, he proved he was a worthy tight end. Not necessarily a tight end one, and more of a stream play if you're in a shallower league. But if we're talking 14-team league, or maybe you've got multiple flex positions, he's a guy to look at, especially for PPR. He could be one of those guys that gets you maybe 4 to 5 catches a game, 50 to 60 yards, and a touchdown here or there.
All right, so you've been on the road with me for 2,000 miles approximately. I've done like 12,000 miles. How's your level of crazy coming along?
Well, it's building slowly but surely. I was luckily able to shave, so I'm not keeping up with you on that full crazy beard of yours.
It's a hockey playoff beard, man. I can't shave till I win the cup or finish the tour. I'm winning some sort of cup when I finish the tour.
I just didn't want to freak everyone out because I grow an amazing, amazing neck beard, and then the rest of it's kind of thin. So I didn't want people to go, that's a really weird-looking Amish beard.
Okay, well, that's how we need to wrap this up because we're in Kansas City at the Well. We're going to go inside, have a fantasy draft with Mark Collins, Super Bowl two-time champion, man. We don't mess around. So we are in Kansas City. We didn't have barbecue, though, today, man. We might have to fix that for dinner tonight. Going to draft here at the Well, and then we are off to Denver for the final stop. Holy cow, I can't believe I'm getting through this. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. See you tomorrow in Denver. What are you doing?